Okay, welcome. So in this video, we are going to start talking about fractions. Okay, so what we call a common fraction, or just fraction, is made up of two whole numbers, a over b, or we can write it this way, where a and b, again, are whole numbers, and b cannot be equal to 0. Okay? So if we look at any whole, a whole pie, a whole chicken, anything, when we talk about wholes, we're talking about a unit, right? And we can make a unit into a fraction. We write a whole number into a fraction, like the number 1 into 4 over 4. And so in order to understand what I'm writing here is, let's define the top number, which is called the numerator. And this tells us how many parts out of the whole that we have or are considering. Okay? Well, there are 2/3 of the pie remaining, or 4/5 of your chores were completed, or the 5/3 of the employees were 5/3. 3/5 of the employees were satisfied. Things like that. So it's telling us how many equal parts we have or are considering out of the total number of equal parts in the whole. Okay? Now the denominator, the bottom number, is called the denominator, and the denominator tells us what kind of fraction is, and tells us, in other words, it tells us how many equal parts the whole has been divided into. Okay? So how many equal parts make up a whole? So these could be divided into fifths, right? If I divided into 5 equal pieces, or if I divided into 6 equal pieces. So again, this tells us in essence what kind of fraction we're dealing with. Okay? And in other words, how many pieces make up a whole. So in this case, it says if I have 4 of the 4 pieces, which makes one whole. Now, the other thing too is this tells us a division. It can be also, how do I want to say this? I guess what do I want to say first? If we look at, let's look at an example. If I look at 3/4, let's do 3/5. So 3/5 So in this case, let's say this is 1 unit. Right? And so if I'm talking about 3/5, then I'm going to shade in 3 of the 5 pieces. And so this here represents 3/5 of the whole. Okay? And so that's one way of looking at the fractions. The other thing too is that fractions tell us a relationship. Okay, so if I say, in another example, let's say manufacturing, and I say, okay, 3 out of the 500 parts that were sampled and tested were defective. Okay, so 3 out of the 500 parts were defective. So in other words, I can write that and say, okay, 3 out of the 500 were defective. In other words, 3/500ths of the parts were defective. So it tells us a relationship, okay? It gives us a proportion. Now we can also look at this as division too. The fractional bar also means division, okay? So if I say 12 divided by 3, well, 12 divided by 3 can be written as a fraction as well. Okay? Where this could be 3 divided by 500. And this is where we're going to get into decimals and percentages as well, right? This is one of the ways that we can write a proportion. Okay? So let's do an example. So that's it for today, or for now, and in this video. In the next video, we'll do an example and we'll go forward. Have a good day.